What if I told you the world's most beautiful building was never supposed to work? It nearly bankrupted a nation, destroyed its own architect's career, and even today carries a flaw that can never be fixed. So what went terribly wrong in Sydney Opera House? In 1957, Australia wanted more than just an opera house. It wanted a symbol, a landmark, a building that would put Sydney on the world map. An international competition was announced. 230 entries were made, but there was only one winner. The sketch by Jørn Utzon, a Danish architect. Instead of drawing conventional building, he imagined giant white cells rising above Sydney Harbour like sails catching the wind. It looked unlike anything the world had ever seen. Australia had found its future icon. But hidden inside those beautiful sketches was a problem no one had stopped to solve. There was one small detail everyone had ignored. No one knew how to build it. Construction began in 1959 before the roof had even been fully engineered. Workers built the foundation, the podiums. Then everything slowed. The famous shell roof wasn't just difficult, it was mathematically impossible using the original design. Every shell had a different curve. Every piece required unique calculations. Nothing could be repeated. For years, engineers searched for an answer. The project fell further behind schedule. Cost climbed higher every month. Finally, after years of failure, Utzon had a breakthrough. He said every shell could be cut from the surface of a single spear. The project was originally expected to take 4 years and cost 7 million Australian dollars. Instead, the delays kept happening, the budget skyrocketed, the newspaper turned against the project. Then, in 1965, a new government came to power. The new Minister for Public Works, David Hughes, believed someone had to be blamed, and that someone was none other than Jørn Utzon. Payments to his office were withheld. His designs were constantly questioned. Approval was delayed. Without funding, Utzon couldn't even pay his staff. Months of frustration turned into open conflict. Finally, in 1966, after nearly a decade of fighting for his own design, Utzon resigned. He quietly left Australia, never returning to see his masterpiece completed. Most people think that's where the problem ended, but another problem had just rose. After Utzon left Australia, Australian architect Peter Hall, together with Lionel Todd and David Littlemore, inherited an impossible job. The roof had already been built, but the interiors hadn't. Instead of designing the building from inside out, as Utzon intended, they had to force the interiors into a roof that could no longer change. That single decision altered the building forever. The opera theatre became smaller than originally planned. The concert hall inherited the prime space but suffered from acoustic shortcomings. For decades, musicians criticized the sound quality. Millions have since spent improving the acoustics. But because the building's overall form was locked in, some compromises can never be erased. When the Sydney Opera House finally opened in 1973, it had taken 14 years to build. Its final cost had reached $102 million, more than 14 times the original estimate. The architect who imagined it wasn't there. Years later, Australia finally admitted its mistake. They invited him back as a design consultant. Eventually, he received the Pritzker Prize and saw his masterpiece become UNESCO World Heritage Site. It transformed Sydney's skyline forever. Yet the man who gave the world one of his greatest buildings never got to stand inside it on its opening day. And perhaps that's the greatest irony of Sydney Opera House. The building became an icon of Australia only after it had broken the man who created it.